Hello, Zaya. Thank you for being willing to join on the Guin Huddle today. I'm excited to have you on today's podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Well, you and I met, I think, in 2021, and you're actually Gwyn's first female artist release that we ever had with your EP, Who's Listening Anyway. And then later on, we worked together for your album release, Yam Grier. But at the time, I know you definitely took a chance on us by signing to a label that was only a few years old, and in many ways, I feel like we kind of grew together. And I know it's been now I think a year and a half since we've worked together. And so reflecting over your years of being an artist and having worked with a label, out of curiosity, like what is your view on labels now? I know you've been recently releasing music as well.
Yeah, I think my view on labels is making sure that, whatever label you do work with, just making sure that you feel like you have the internal support that you need, and then also having external support, your own team too, that can help support on things that you need. Um, I think that, to be honest with you, I'm more so an advocate for more boutique labels than major labels, unless you're really going to be on a label under a boutique label. I feel like that's pretty much my view, is that if you could be on a smaller team, on a team that's going to make sure that things aren't falling through the cracks, you'll have a much better experience. I think people romanticize the major label experience, but you're amongst many artists. So when you're able to at least be on a major under a boutique or just be at a smaller label, I'm more of an advocate for those types of experiences.
Yeah, agreed. And I feel like for yourself, something that I witnessed, or even in general, like I feel like when artists sign to a label, they're like, okay, I'm signed to a label, like I don't have to do as much work. Like all my hard work is done. Like I'm just gonna hand it off to the label. But something great that I experienced in working with you was like it was kind of like, okay, now like the work is actually starting. And it was really a 50-50 partnership. You were always, advocating for your artistry, your vision. And so I really appreciated that because I feel like sometimes we have a hard time, making sure that artists are fully engaged and just willing to, do the work with us. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely is a 50-50 partnership for sure. And then if you have your own team, then of course as the artist you can have less of that percentage put on you, but it still is gonna require some work.
Yeah. And yeah, I feel like at Gwyn we've kind of found that we've positioned ourselves in between artists being fully independent and as well as the traditional record label signing, by trying not to fully micromanage the creative process of an artist and being more so of support to an artist in the areas that they need support in. But I would love your opinion on whether you think artists early in their career can benefit from getting signed to a label or not in your experience.
I think it depends on what the label is willing to offer. We're seeing with virality being something that's heavily valued in our industry, that artists that are in the beginning of their career are getting signed. I think that it's easier to not drop the ball with those artists if the labels or the management teams are willing to take on some of that artist development or take on some of the fine tuning and polishing of those artists. It can be beneficial if you have this. I think if you're a new artist and you get signed immediately out the gate and you don't have the support for those areas that you're still green in, I think it could be a misstep for sure.
Yeah. Do you think there's any value of kind of being independent for a little bit of time just to kind of sit with, I guess, your work and knowing? I don't know, maybe who you want to be and the kind of release that you want to have before fully signing on to a label.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that typically creatives value their own self autonomy in their work. And, if you are more aware of who you are, what your voice is, or what your brand is, just having some sort of an idea of what kind of art you want to create or who you are as it relates to your art can help you advocate in those rooms with labels. It also just depends on what you value, though. Like not everybody values the advocacy of their art. Some folks are just like, I want to be popping, I want to be famous. Then maybe that doesn't matter as much. But I think for an artist that really does value their creative autonomy and wants to be able to hold on to some of that agency, it definitely is valuable to have those independent years and also just to be educated, like to not have to be so green when you guys are talking about splits or when you guys are talking about what is publishing or what's licensing or what percentage of a master should you get and da da da. Like, I think it's good to be independent for some time to take on that knowledge, um, so that you don't heavily depend on a label or a management team to do all of this for you or to know all of this for you. I think it empowers your art at the end of the day.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. How was your experience in that? Like, how long were you, I guess, independent before getting any sort of support, whether it was through label or even just like a partnership?
I mean, technically, I was close to 10 years into doing music before I actually received any like partnership from a label or a corporation when it came to my music. Um, all of my music had been done at that point independently through other distro services and just through kind of like bartering deals or just folks doing music and content for the love or me just, paying out of my pocket for things. Um, and it definitely was a lot of years of work before that took place, but I think it made sense, just because I do know that there's a certain amount of work that is definitely possible to do independently that I think just a lot of people don't wanna do that work. That I mean, I value those years that I was doing that before I actually introduced a team and a label into my creative process.
And did you have like even management support all those 10 years, or did that come also later on?
I had management support in the beginning of my career, and then I ended up not having management support up until maybe about 8 years in, which I would say that's another thing that can kind of align with the idea of, taking your time before you get to a label. You should also, I think, take your time independently before you get to a manager. I mean, if you don't have anything to manage, there is no point of you having a manager. At this point in my career, I definitely need a manager. I have people DMing me or emailing me or texting me and things like that where I'm like, okay, I can't also show up and do the work and manage the work without being incredibly overwhelmed. It's time for me to loop someone in. But for a good amount of time of those, years that I was doing music, I think that, I was gaining those relationships. I was gaining that visibility to have something to manage, but I didn't need one just yet. So that was also something that I think was valuable with that development, that artist development that I had to develop the actually just like the bandwidth or the lack thereof to even need to include a manager in my process.
And how did you find the right manager, or even like the first manager you had versus now, like if you have like the perfect fit for you, how did you get to that point?
I'm always an advocate for having your management find you and you not finding your management. I almost feel like it's a little bit like dating, they say like you don't go looking for love, it finds you. And I think that because management is so intimate, like they're going to be even closer to you than the label. Actually, they're advocating for you, sometimes maybe opposed the label of what's happening. Like, you're gonna need somebody who you trust,
Right.
and to build that type of relationship requires a certain amount of intimacy. It requires a certain amount of synchronicity and, like, chemistry, that I think it's important that people find you and you kind of date that experience and see what works for you. Because I do think that, like, there's a compatibility that has to happen, and understanding like what type of management styles work best for you. I definitely think my experience in my career helps me understand myself and understand like what I value, and that helped me understand what I valued from a manager. So now I'm to a point where I have a day to day and I have executive management. And now I know what those things are. 8 years ago, I didn't know there was a difference, right? So
Yeah.
I definitely say, like, don't go searching, like, oh, I'm looking for a manager. I don't know. I just feel like that could make you such an easy target,
Right.
um, and put you in such a gullible space. I think that you definitely have to have somebody who's passionate and is willing to be invested in you, because the same way that a label is, technically taking a loss by off rip by investing in you, so is a manager, so to speak, because not all work that you get coming in can they even profit off of. So it has to be some sort of intimacy and commitment there from that manager. It can't just be like a somebody that you go interviewing for. I think it has to be more substance to it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, a great manager is really just like an extension of yourself, and having someone that really represents who you are, you know, being able to like fully talk about your artistry and your music and what you represent. So definitely an important piece of the puzzle. And how do you maintain like a good relationship with your manager? Because I feel like a manager almost is like kind of like a best friend, but also, a business partner in many ways. So how do you feel like you balance that relationship?
Yeah. Well, I'm blessed enough that my manager is my best friend. But um but even that, I think people have always thought that would be more complicated than the latter of like somebody who, wasn't my friend already. But I would say one of the biggest ways that we're able to maintain a good business relationship, and even a friendship outside of her managing me, is we know how to turn the work off and we know how to turn the work on. Um, that's something that I really value as an artist. One thing that really burns artists out is having no one on your team that is able to humanize you and see, "Oh, she's tired. Oh,
Mhm.
she needs to not do this," or even just, like, knows you a little bit more than yourself, right? Because an artist could still be like, "No, I'm gonna do it. I'm fine. I'm fine." You need to have that manager that's like, "No, she's not fine. We're actually," I mean, we technically rescheduled this because I was sick,
Okay.
right? Like, being able to have a
Yeah.
manager that's like, "Hey, my client can't do this right now." So, you know, having someone that knows me enough on a personal level to advocate for me, um, it really does help us be able to balance in and out of the business. We know how to turn it off, but also there's just like ultimately a respect that we have for one another. Um, I've learned that one thing that I heavily value is communication, the frequency of it, the intent of it, and how you do it. And we really communicate on the same level. Having someone that understands and communicates on the same wavelength as you is really, I think, necessary in this business, because I also have to trust that when I'm not in the room, she's my eyes, my ears, my voice in the room when I'm not there. And that's really helped me maintain a great relationship with her, and just a great relationship with this business, to not feel like, even though I have a manager, I need to micromanage because I don't know if she's going to say it, or I don't know if
Mhm.
she's going to say the right thing. So I got to make sure I'm in on every meeting. So that's definitely helped us be able to balance that relationship.
Wow, it's definitely a blessing to have such a a great extension of yourself in a manager. So
Yeah.
yeah. And I know during the time that we were working together, you were also balancing a full time job. So, how do you balance the experience of working a full time job, but also being an artist full time? Because that's obviously a whole job in itself as well.
I will say that I'm definitely blessed that I work in an industry that doesn't require me to, for one, be physically present. If I
Mm,
had a job that required me to be in person, don't know if I'd be able to balance both at this point in my career.
yeah,
Um, and I will say, being in the tenure that I am now, um, it's definitely been a lot more of a easier balance. I wouldn't even say that I've balanced. I would just say that the percentages shift. There's
mm,
times where, in the last year I had took a break away from music, so I was able to give my corporate career way more of a, percentage of effort. And then when it comes to times where I'm in release mode, we might see that go to 60/40. So that and just kind of like being communicative with my work, like they're very aware of who I am and what I do and what I value. Um, and I think I've been very blessed in the industry that I work in that my artistry actually incentivize my corporate career. Um, so I've been able to find balance there. I think I learned over the years after quitting almost every single job that I was at that like if the job does not coincide with some level of my music career, it's just not going to work. Um like it can't be a completely different field. Like I worked in styling before. I worked at Macy's for loss prevention for 2 months until I saw someone get tackled, and I was like, "This has nothing to do with my music, and I'm trying to be known one day. I
yeah,
can't be tackling people." Like, it can't be completely left field from what you do, but I think understanding the rhythm of your work is so crucial if for folks that don't work in an industry that's adjacent to music, understanding the rhythm. So, if you're off certain days and working certain days, well, prioritize those days that you're off for your music,
right.
or really just being strategical about when you do certain things and also letting people know, like, hey, this is my work schedule. So typically, this is when it's best. Communication and understanding the rhythm of my work has been 1,000% like a lifesaver. I mean, when I was with Guin, I technically was in a different position with a huge major client and was managing a team of 8 people while on two and did 2 tours. How I did
Right.
that, how I did that, I don't freaking know.
Yeah.
But it also took a lot of understanding the rhythm and communication, and honestly, just complete luck that those tours were during times where the client work was slow. But I would say, yeah, just being mindful of the rhythm of the work that you do and communicating with your 9 to 5, like, that has 100% saved me.
Yeah. What a journey. So how did you get to the place that you are now in terms of work? Is it something that like experience wise, how did you get there? Was it something that maybe you studied for earlier on, or it was just like through the experience that you built at the other jobs that you found the perfect fit?
Surprisingly, none of my other 9 to 5 jobs actually completely aligned with the work that I do today in digital marketing. Um, all the freelance work that I did, however, aligned. I think one of the biggest misses that I've noticed that happens with creatives is that we aren't entirely educated on how many lanes we can go into with our creative. As an artist, I was thinking when I went to school, like, oh, okay, I'll be a music major, I'll be a vocal jazz emphasis, on my major. And dang, okay, well, what can I do with that? I guess I could be a music teacher. Okay, not knowing, like, no, honey, you're not just a singer, you're a songwriter, but not only are you a songwriter, you're a creative. When you think about your music and your rollouts, you think about what colors, you think about what places you're in, you think about the timing of the release. You think so I didn't know like, oh, that's a creative producer.
Mhm.
Oh, that has to do with brand management. There was so much that I didn't know that I was actively doing at that time for myself and for other people.
Right.
And it wasn't until uh, really until the quarantine sat us down and that I decided to kind of go after it. While I was on tour prior to when we, sat down for quarantine and everybody got locked in, I was thinking about like, oh, I really want to go into either project management or creative producing in the digital marketing space because so many people at that time while I was touring with Kanye was like, how are you releasing music right now and we're in rehearsal 4 days a week and in a new city? Who did your rollout? Who did that photo shoot for you? Who planned it? And I'm like, "Oh, me, I planned it. I did." And they're like, "What?" And that's when I luckily got blessed enough from one of my roommates, Jasmine, and she's like, "You're technically a creative producer. That's what you're doing." And I'm like, "Oh, I had no idea." And so I started to look at the work that I was doing and looking at how it aligned with these different emphasis in these fields and just decided, okay, well, I know that technically I only got freelance work on this resume that aligns with this job field, but I'm going to go after it. And I took a shot. I started applying for every agency I could that fit within that job description and got blessed enough that my first major client was Nike and got to, immediately go into that realm of being a digital producer at that time. And then from there, I've just progressed now to a brand manager. So it really was just kind of a culmination of my freelance experience along with just my amazing community of people seeing gifts in me that I didn't have the vocabulary for. I think if I had awareness of what that was and that existed, that definitely would have been something I pursued very early on.
Right. And I know at least during the time that we worked together, um, a lot of what you were doing, in your full time job, also helped in many ways, and in what you were doing, just in the conversations that we would have in marketing and digital marketing. How do you feel like your job helped your understanding of marketing, and how did it fully like overlap into music?
I will say, for one, it definitely helped me understand the importance of timelines, the importance of a work back schedule, intent on the dates. When is this happening? I will say throughout most of my career, it was like, oh, when are you dropping this? I don't know. Maybe we'll drop it. Like I had some intention around it creatively, but I didn't always have intention on the process or even the process of when folks would experience it. And digital marketing and branding really shows you how those two worlds meet. Like the intention behind the creative is what it is, but you're also seeing it when you see it on a certain date because that's what we wanted. So it helped me understand marrying those worlds and really helped me to want to do that more within my own releases and value that, which definitely helps me work with labels a lot better. I will say that's a compliment that I've gotten from labels before of like thank you, because a lot of times artists
Organized.
don't think time.
Yeah.
They don't think timelines. They're thinking like broad strokes of what they want to release, but they're not thinking, okay, when? Like, is it
Right.
in April? Is it in May? Like, and I think working in that space helped me get real life dates to my goals. Um, it also helped me develop the stories
Mm.
behind my work, and the branch off stories. When people talk about artists rollouts and campaigns with their projects and they talk about brand partnerships or the release parties or the this, a lot of times artists when they don't know much about branding or marketing. They're just thinking that basic. They're thinking, oh, we need a
Oh,
photo shoot, we need photos, we need music videos, the project. a release party, maybe a listening party,
Right.
bet. And it's like, no, like, what is the universe of that project?
Right.
Where is that? We did that with Yam Grier. We built a whole universe in the website of it. We did it with Who's Listening Anyway, with like the infomercials and having the phone numbers and, like creating a universe with your product. I think artists, a lot of times we can just look at our art as just the art and let the labels or distro handle the product side of it. And it's like, no, you got to think of this as a full brand story. Um, and I will say, working in marketing has definitely influenced the way that I think about that.
Yeah. No, I think one of my favorite memories is in the conversations leading up to like you wanting to record for Yam Grier, you were like, here's a deck. Here's like the images that I associate to this album. Here's what I want to do. Here's the timeline, which is like we normally have to like beg artists just to like give us a glimpse of all that so that we can put the deck together. But it was just so nice to get that from the artist side because you were just so organized and you really knew what you wanted and like how to get there. You knew creatives you wanted to work with, pricing, all of that. So it was really nice and a first time experience on our behalf to see that. So
Yeah, definitely a rare occasion on both of our ends.
exactly. And I know now you're getting into DJing. I see you're going on tour for DJing and everything, which is so exciting. Was there something about being like an R&B artist that you felt you needed a break from, or is DJing something that you see as kind of bringing the two artistic worlds together?
Well, technically, I just started DJing because I wanted to learn how to DJ for my birthday. I was like, I want to DJ my birthday party. This has always been on my bucket list. I
Mhm.
want to learn. And um, I picked it up really easily, and it was so much fun. And during the past year of like really giving myself a break away from releasing music, it was nice to have a musical outlet that didn't feel like it came with as much pressure as
Mm,
the music industry did. It was
yeah,
just like, I'm here to help folks have a good time. That's
right.
it. And so it's been great. It's also really helped me fall in love with the rediscovery of music that I really enjoyed,
Yeah,
the music that other people enjoy that they put me on to. I completely experience music differently now. And it's also helped me, I think, be a better songwriter at this point, like just knowing what BPMs and things that people respond to at different events. But it's been really cool to marry the worlds of my music, at least in the taste of how I DJ and how I mix certain songs. It's just felt like it's felt really fun to be new at something again because I've been doing music for so long. So it's like, oh yeah, like I know this, I know that, whatever. And I still learn, I'm learning a lot still every day with music, but to be brand spanking new with something was really, really scary. And I hadn't
yeah,
had that experience in a long time. And so that was really fun to come in and do that. And the DJ community has been so amazing to me. Like,
great. Yeah.
just has welcomed me with open arms. So it's been such a great outlet.
I love that. Yeah. Is there someone like you learned from, or it's just something you just fully threw yourself into and kind of figured out on your own?
I got blessed by my friend Dre Slaps, who's a DJ and an artist, and I would always frequent his parties, still
Mhm.
do. He would pretty much be the only parties that I would go to in Portland. I'm like, if you're DJing, that's where I'll be.
Yeah.
And I remember telling him, I'm like, I want to learn. And so I remember asking him and I asked DJ Starza, like, okay, what board should I get? What should I do? And Dre Slaps and his wife Zanelle actually bought me my first controller for my birthday that year.
Oh,
Um, just so sweet, and so bought me my first little baby controller. Since then, I've definitely upgraded, and I have like a real-time controller, but yeah, he taught me how to DJ, and really just was like giving me pointers here and there. He's like, "Sis, you got it. Like, you
Yeah.
don't even need too much from me. You got it." And I to this day, I definitely seek a lot of mentorship from him. I went a similar route with DJing as I did with music and sought out mentorship because I definitely know that it just makes the process easier, when you have someone who's tenured and who you know is going to steer you in the right direction. Because beyond learning how to DJ, I had to learn the industry. How
Right.
much do you charge? The
Mm.
ins and outs and the do's and don'ts. And so,
Yeah.
I'm coming in green there. So, yeah, shout out to Dre Slaps for that for sure.
Love that. And has your creative process, I guess, changed as a DJ compared to being like an artist, or is it quite similar?
Mm, it definitely is. It's a bit similar in the sense that like I still get inspired by real life or in the moment type of situations.
Mhm.
Um, I can be out and hear a song. It definitely has impacted the way that I listen to music when I'm out, like at a restaurant or at somebody else's DJ set or wherever. I'm like writing in my notes, like, oh shoot, I gotta remember to download this song. Or I'm thinking about a mix, like randomly I'll think about mixes and be like, ooh, I should mix this song into this song. And I'll normally write a note or I'll send myself a text so that I could go back and do it.
Yeah.
But the process is a little bit different because I would say music is something that typically when I'm writing, um, I'm just kind of letting it flow, at least as it relates to the process of executing it. The
Mhm.
process of like executing a good set requires um a certain amount of planning to an extent, so it does require me to practice a little bit before my set. I'm not necessarily like practicing before I'm going into the studio, but I might, warm up. So I guess it is a little bit similar in those realms, but I'm normally like planning a little bit. And what I will say is definitely shared is figuring out like what vibe am I in, the same way that I do with my songwriting. I'm like, okay, what do I want to write about right now? Or what energy do I feel right now? I do the same when I'm DJing, like, oh, I want to play more Afrobeat tonight, or I want to play more chill R&B. I definitely come into every set with a certain amount of intention of what it is that I want to experience that night or what I want other people to experience.
Great. And how do you take care of yourself mentally and physically to show up the way that you want to show up, I guess, as an artist and as a DJ?
I will say one thing that has really helped me show up um, as an artist and as a DJ has for sure been my self care. Um, it definitely has been just like my sobriety and not like drinking liquor every time it's offered because that's the thing. You're a DJ, the DJs you're drinking for free, right? So for anybody else, they're like, "Ooh, okay, I get 4 drinks for free."
Yeah.
For me, it's like immediately I'm like, "No." As soon as I knew I was going back into release mode, I was like, "Oh, yeah, no, I'm not drinking." And I will say
Mhm.
that has helped me show up better because physically, if I'm not feeling well, I can't give you my best as a DJ or as a singer. Um, so definitely investing in my physical health has helped me show up better, making sure that I, move my body as much as I can and I hydrate, making sure that I'm taking care of my mental health has definitely helped me show up better as an artist. Putting those things first for sure has impacted the relationship that I have with both of those industries.
Amazing. And how do you set goals for yourself as an artist, and I guess also now as a DJ? Do you like fully envision the future of your career, or is it kind of a day to day goal setting? And what do you do to fully like bring that to fruition for yourself?
I will say it definitely depends because I a lot of times will set certain like short-term goals and I'll be blessed enough to like hit them very quickly. And at this point, I haven't necessarily um, worried too much about the goal setting as much as I've been worried about just executing,
Mhm.
being in the process of it all. I have like my tangible goals that I know that I'm gonna do of like, okay, I want to release a project this year. I want to release these many singles this year. I want to do that. And it's so funny. I think I've just been in the process of getting after the things that I desire for so long in life that I don't necessarily even look at it as goal setting. Like I'll set a goal and not even realize
Mhm.
I set that as a goal. Like when I wanted to learn how to DJ for my birthday, it's just something I want to do. Like
Right.
it
Yeah.
feels like that in my mind rather than like I'm setting this goal. I'm just like, oh, well, that's what I want to do. So I'm going to do that. So a
Right.
lot of times that's how the process is in my mind. And sometimes I'll write it down, sometimes I won't. A lot of times my goal setting, I utilize my friends and people that I trust to be my accountability partners because I can write something down and it'll never see the light of day. And if you never knew that that was a goal of mine, you can't
Right.
hold me accountable to reach it. So a lot of times I'll talk to my partner or my best friend and be like, I feel like I want to DJ in other cities.
Mhm.
And they're like, "Okay, well, you should do it." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll start talking to people."
Yeah.
I feel like that has been my formula for goal setting is like I need accountability partners
Mhm.
because as easily as I could talk myself into wanting to do something, I could definitely talk myself out of it. So
Right.
typically
Perhaps,
that's how I goal set.
yeah, having the person.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yep.
do that with one of my friends. She had set herself some goals for this year, and every time I see her, I'm like, "Well, have you done this, this, and this?" And she's like, I think it throws people off, like, because, your friends obviously love you and they listen to you when you talk to them, so making sure they keep you accountable for goals and
Yes.
stuff. 'Cause I mean, I don't know, it
1000% works.
makes you feel better and accomplished, and yeah. But, for yourself, what do you find is, like, the most rewarding part of being an artist?
Mm. I will say when people tell me like, "Oh, your music helped me get through this," or "I've been listening to your music since 2016," or, like, "This is my favorite song. I listen to it all the time," or "I this song is my manifestation song." Like, that is the most rewarding part to know that I'm connecting with other human beings. Um it really is like one of the biggest compliments in the world to know that something that resonated with me first, that I
Right.
decided to release out, resonated with other people. Um, and I think that for someone like me who, like, as a teenager would always feel like, "Oh, like, I don't feel seen," and, a lot of us deal with that, of not feeling seen and feeling like people don't understand us and feeling misunderstood, and so to release music as an outlet and then for people to go, "Oh my god, like, I see you," or them saying, like, "You see me," like, "I feel like your music is for me,"
Yeah.
is such a huge compliment. It's one of the best things I could ask for.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And for yourself, is that what success looks like for you as an artist, or are there certain, like, temples that you have for yourself beyond that as well? That
It definitely is. I think that the fact that I'm even at a point that people think of me for certain opportunities, I mean, for stuff like this, right? Like when people have me in mind for opportunities, you think, oh, I would like to interview an artist for, this platform and you think of me, that feels like success. The fact that my name could be spoken in rooms that I'm not in for opportunities that benefit me is a very, blessed thing to experience. And I think that has allowed me to experience success over these last few years. Starting from being unknown, you're building your relationships and building your chops to where folks can talk about you in spaces you're not in. So
yeah,
that's definitely success for me. And the fact that I get to share my experiences with other people that they relate to. Like whenever I perform and folks come up to me after shows, like that feels like success, or even just someone recognizing me in public. I'm like, what the heck? Like I'm just me. So I'm not
Yeah.
thinking that you even know who I am, but the fact that you are stopping me and saying you listen to my music, wow. Like thank you so much, because I'm not assuming that, you're listening. I don't know. But that definitely that's been incredibly fulfilling.
I think you do it like a great job of like humanizing yourself as an artist. I mean, you're so, tapped in on all social medias, and whether it's TikTok and like just being face forward, or Twitter or X, or and Instagram. How do you like manage all of that? Obviously you're DJing, you're releasing music and being face front on everything. I know even just doing one of those things is hard for a lot of artists, and even just people in general. How do you do such a great job of authentically just really being yourself on all of these platforms?
So I feel like I wish I had like an answer that could really, really describe it. Cause I've definitely been told, like, yo, you're different. Cause I don't know how you're doing this. I have tabs open in my mind for sure.
Okay.
Um, I will say what helps me be successful in showing up on my platforms and um, being consistent and responsible in that is writing down my to-dos every day.
Mhm.
That is like I'll say that's like an easy, tangible thing for folks for sure. It's like
Right.
I write down what I need to do. Um, because there's so much to do, and I'll also just have ideas all the time that like I have to write stuff down. But then I also will say that I leave a lot of room for me to be spontaneous. I'm not a heavily curated person. And if folks, seen my social media, they would know that. Like, I'm not a super curated person. I definitely am, but I leave room for spontaneity so that, like, if something comes to mind, I'm like, okay, bet I'll record it, or I'll tweet it real quick, So I definitely allow that room, and I think that that kinda makes up for those moments where I might not have something curated. Um, and I will say, uh, as full of it as it sounds, if you're an artist and a creator, think of your life as a TV show at
Mhm.
all times if you can. I will say, like, I definitely have moments that I might record something, I'm like, "Oh, I'm not posting this, this is for me," or whatever, but if there's any moment that you're performing your artistry or in the process of creating, or something that has to do with your branding or who you are, get a tripod, record yourself, whatever. There's something there. It doesn't have to be shot in a professional studio on a professional camera. Like, just record it. I will say that has also helped me create a lot of content because I don't minimize the resources that I have. If I have my phone and I'm doing something creative, I'm about to rehearse real quick DJing, I might as well record this set in Serato and set up my camera. That's like one extra step that does not hurt. A
Yeah.
lot of times people say though that they have a hard time editing.
Mhm.
Um, and I know that that's like a big thing for creatives is like, how do you post this content? I normally don't have time to sit down and edit.
Yeah.
Um, I normally try to be mindful of like, well, what is the intent of what it is that I'm trying to post? Or are there any highlighted moments of what I was recording that I'm like, oh, I want to post that? It makes it easier for me to cut down and edit. And setting aside times and days to be like, I'm gonna edit today. And just being accountable to do it and to post it.
It's great. And how do you juggle all of that, as well as, I guess, just your personal life? Obviously, you have family, you have a relationship. How do you juggle all of that and prioritize it, and make sure your family and loved ones also kind of feel seen in the midst of everything else that you're prioritizing?
I would say Google Calendar. that has been a great tool, but also, like, you really will only prioritize what matters to you most, right? And, spending time with my family and my friends and making sure that my loved ones feel seen and heard is always such a priority for me that I always try to be cognizant of that. I recently had a conversation actually before I got on this call where it was like, hey, you got to offer to do this thing. And I'm like, I'm literally traveling for the whole month of April for the most part. I need to get back home
Yeah,
eventually. Like, I can't be traveling the whole month of April, and if I take this gig, that means I'm gonna be gone for another week. It does mean sometimes saying no to certain things because I'm choosing to prioritize, um, my family or my loved ones or my friends. Like, this weekend, my nephew has a botillion, which is like a debutante ball, but for boys, and um, I, took a flight to come to the Bay Area to go to his ceremony, and that means I'm not gonna be able to, shoot and do certain things in office or take certain gigs on that weekend, but this is really important to me, so it definitely comes with a balance, and also I think, like, when you mentally and spiritually understand, like, I can't miss out on what's for me. Saying no to certain things doesn't really bother you entirely. And if that person really wants to book you, they'll figure out another date to book you.
good point. Thank you. So, I guess in the world of music now, out of curiosity, do you have any thoughts on just like the impact of AI on music and your sentiments on the future of the music industry? You think it's going in a good direction? Do you personally feel in any way like threatened by AI in any way, or do you think it's a great tool to actually be able to use for your artistry?
It's funny because the conversation of AI is something that I'm posed with on a digital marketing side as it affects copywriters and digital designers. And then, of course, if it affects copywriters, it affects songwriters.
Yeah,
And I will say that as it relates maybe to certain commercial jobs, it might be a threat there. Like, if somebody is wanting a quick turn song for some sort of commercial jingle or some sort of placement song for some movie where people aren't really paying attention to the lyrics in the background, like, maybe that, but I think as it relates to performing artists, I don't necessarily feel threatened by it. I do see the value in it as a tool in the same way that, like, an artist might use Rhyme Zone and is like, "Well, what word rhymes with candle?" Like, I could see that utilizing it as a resource to maybe dive into researching a topic about a song or figuring out what rhymes with what or what line can I say after this. I could see that. But I think at the end of it, especially as it relates to music, there's just an essence of music performance, especially that you can't duplicate. Even when you hear an AI song, you're like, oh, wow, that sounds cool, but it's AI. There's inflections in the voice and in the performance that like, they're not there yet, that you really can't copy. And I think ultimately, as it relates to creative, there's an element in entertainment that people want to experience another human.
right.
Like, that is the connection of art to that extent. It's like, this is an expression from another human, and I'm relating to that. So I could see it being utilized as a tool, but I don't see it having like um, such like a impact on the industry in a way that like artists should feel so threatened. I
Right.
definitely can see it impacting more um, career songwriters that, you know, maybe normally might call three songwriters in the room to help write on this project, but maybe now that one songwriter that normally would call those other two people, they're just about to use AI and themselves,
Yeah.
like I could see that happening, but
Yeah.
as it relates to recording artists, I don't feel threatened there.
Right. Yeah. We still need the very much so the humanization of music.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, thank you, Zyah, for for today's conversation. And I guess, is there anything we can really look forward to this summer from you or post summer?
Yeah, I'll definitely be releasing more music throughout the year and dropping an EP this year. So I'm excited. Yeah, this summer will definitely be a time where folks can expect some new music from me.
Very exciting. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Misha. I appreciate it.